All right, what's up, everybody? Episode 3 of One and Ones. We got Weldon, Williford in the building. Weldon, what's up, brother?
Hey man, it's good to be here. I love talking to everybody about what I've been doing. I've been doing this for about well, maybe 5 years in August. So we got a lot to talk about.
Okay, cool. So, first question: what did you eat today?
Well, for breakfast, I had an egg white protein shake. That's pretty much my usual that I have every morning with apple and a handful of walnuts. And then I've been trying to get extra protein. So I've added turkey bacon and with an English muffin. I buy the Dave's Killer English muffins and pre-cooked turkey bacon. Just try to get extra protein, and that seems to really help sustain me through the day. And then for lunch, I do the Oscar Mayer. Those, I just I could do a lot better, but I'm trying to be budget conscious. I buy like the Oscar Mayer bulk deli slices, turkey slices, and I make a sandwich with that. Like today, I had a banana with some sunflower butter. And then for dinner to this evening, kind of my usual. I buy the big pack again from Sam's Club. I buy the big packs of the pre-frozen hamburger patties. I'll throw those in the air fryer, and I do like some pinto beans and rice, and then sometimes I'll have, depends on how hungry I am. Sometimes that's enough. If I've been very active, sometimes I'll add on an extra apple or just something for dessert after, something that's allowable, so to speak.
No, yeah, I hear you. I asked that because the main point here is you can go low vitamin A diet. There's a few ways to do it, right?
Right.
There's different paths to the same destination, and then what you just said is good for the people who are trying to budget,
Yeah.
who are trying to What's the egg white protein shake? What is that? Just egg white powder?
Yeah, it's egg white. I buy it from it's truenutrition.com.
Okay.
It's out of California. You can do custom blends. And I do 85% egg white, 15% collagen blend. I've mixed it around. Sometimes you can do it however you want it. Sometimes I'll do 80-20.
Yeah.
But I've been doing 85-15. And I've been doing that for years, or at least since I started on the low vitamin A. I used to do the whey protein back in the day, and I started having terrible, because again, this is way before the low vitamin A days. I started having terrible just allergies and sinus problems, and I noticed every time I drank one of those whey protein shakes, they would get worse.
Yeah.
And so just without even knowing about the vitamin A stuff, I had switched to pea protein, and that seemed to make it better. And then, like I said, once Dr. Garrett Smith came out with the low vitamin A program, as soon as I followed him. I've known or followed him for about 13 years now. So as soon as he came out with that and said, "Hey, this is what we need to do," I'm like, I'm all, whatever he wants to do is what I do.
Yeah, I hear that. So tell me your story. How long have you been on the low vitamin A diet? What were your symptoms? What were you going through? And what's gotten better? So how long you been doing this? What was wrong and what's gotten better?
I mean, it was everything. I had been searching for years. I felt like I've been going to the gym now for about 13 years straight or 12 years straight now. And I just never felt like, even as I was getting older, I just felt like my health was going downhill and it didn't make sense. I was doing the paleo thing. I did all I was eating my omelets and, with the spinach and all the peppers and all those things. And, thought I was eating so healthy, and I would wake up in the mornings and my joints were all hurting. I felt like I didn't have any energy. I was having all these skin rashes, mouth ulcers. I mean, you name it. I mean, I sat down one day and I couldn't even come up with all the things that were wrong now. I mean, it's because I've been well for so long now, I've forgotten half the things. I go back like, yeah, I used to suffer from that. Oh yeah, I had that too. Oh yeah, cold hands and feet. I mean, it was just an ongoing. It was a struggle. It felt like, it seemed like, day to day. And I'm like, this makes no sense. Here I am, I'm taking all my proper supplements, my vitamin D, and my, I was taking the cod liver oil, and I was doing all the things that supposedly you hear on the, on Twitter and everything, it's supposed to make your testosterone better and all this kind of stuff. And, finally I realized I started having sexual problems. I was having all these other issues. And that's when I finally went and got, a test, testosterone test. And I think it's been so long, like I said, it's been, because this was well before I started low vitamin A. It's been about 9 years, 8 or 9 years, and I think it was under 200. I actually did research because I'm a big researcher, and found that Clomid was something you could take that would not. It's not like taking testosterone; it didn't affect you permanently. You could come off of it anytime, and it was inexpensive. I mean, at the time it was like $25 a month. So I tried that. And it worked. I mean, it fixed some of the problems. Did not fix libido, but it did fix the functional parts. And I seem to hang around that 500-600 ish, with the Clomid. But again, I still was having all the health problems, the joint pains, all those things. And like I said, within, I think about 3 years is when Dr. Smith came out with the low vitamin A, and I read all of Grant Generou's books. Because I'm everything I do, I research for myself before I do it. I mean, I trust but verify. And that's what I've always liked about Dr. Smith, is everything he does, right or wrong, is he always has the research to back it up. Just to give you, if you don't mind, to give you a quick history of how all this came to be. About 14 years ago, I had a daughter. She had brain and spinal cancer. And we fought for 2.5 years. And I did everything everything that was possible to try to save her life, all to the point of, and I know this is, which at this point, it's not like the law is going to come after me, but we actually went to Maine, because it was illegal. We actually did the marijuana oil. And so she actually was able to stay home through her last, months of her life, pain-free, essentially, because we did that. But through that, I got into the Weston A. Price, through the research. The internet was getting big. Weston A. Price was big. And then through that, I found Matt Stone. A lot of people probably heard of Matt Stone. And then Matt was talking about Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith did a paper, I think, on nightshades for Weston A. Price. Again, that was 12 years ago. And so that's kind of how this all came to be. And so really, when I was treating her, there was nothing that I don't know about the human body. Basically, I was a supplement as far as treating, and that's why I've learned through this process, B vitamins, all those things, all you're doing is you're using them as drugs and medicines. You're not healing anything. And that's, and that was my thing. When I kept getting sicker, I was like, I can fix this, but then I still had this problem, or I can fix that, but then it caused that problem. And I went down the whole histamine, methylation rabbit hole. I went down that, and I did a great job with it, treating it. But again, you're managing it, because when you boost your methylation, then it's almost like you're hyper, because my allergies were better, but it then, like, I was just wide open because you're so over methylated. There's no balance, because you're just not healthy. And that's one of the things that I've loved. And once the vitamin A, I was like, this is the missing piece. Like, it explained everything. I couldn't figure out why some egg studies good, why are some bad? Well, it depends on the toxicity of the person, the sunburn, all those sorts of things. And that's one of the things. I can go out in the sun all day now and I don't burn. it's, and I used to be very sensitive. I had seasonal allergies. I mean, and I can say I'm probably 95% cured of that. I mean, obviously, right now, I think they said the pollen count's the highest it's been like in history this year. And so, I mean, I had some very, very minor scratchy throat, maybe, but I mean, I breathe through my nose. I mean, and I don't take any allergy meds or nothing. I mean, and I was one that couldn't. I mean, I grew up on Celdane. If you remember that, it was a horrible allergy med. But I grew up taking Celdane every day just to live. The biggest thing, and that's why, and the thing that I preach so much, this diet, and I can't get people to believe it, is, I had celiac disease. And I didn't go to the. I mean, they didn't even know what celiac was. I'm 47 years old. When I was young, when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, they didn't know what celiac was. It was like, oh, you're just stressed out. Oh, it's something. But I had all the symptoms. I don't need a test to say, oh, you had celiac. I mean, when you eat something with bread in it, you have to run straight to the bathroom after you eat. And then you get all the chicken skin on the back of your arms, the rashes and all things, everything that comes along with celiac disease, the hormonal problems. You've got celiac. And and I love pizza and I loved hamburgers, and I didn't want to give it up until I went gluten-free, probably, I guess it was 9 or 10 years ago. And I finally went gluten-free. And again, it made things better, but it didn't fix it. I mean, that was the thing. It still didn't fix anything. I mean, because I was still eating all the bad stuff. I mean, I was still eating gluten-free pizzas, which were loaded with cheese and tomato sauce, and I still would have, at the worst of time, and that's why I knew there were certain things I still couldn't eat because I would still have a reaction. But it was never the gluten in the first. I mean, the gluten was a trigger with the extra bile dumping. And I do think there's an allergy component, just like, they've said, a lot of allergies and food allergies are caused when vitamin A or retinol is present. And I think that's the thing. It just so happened to be gluten is one of those things. When you put it in there with retinol, you get that allergy.
And now you're eating all the gluten you want, and you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I eat Dave's Killer. I mean, now I'm so anal. Like I try not to put any of these artificial, vitamins in my body. And then I was also looking at the fortified bread. I mean, they put like 30 or 40% of your daily iron amount in like one slice of bread. Yeah. And I'm sitting here looking like, this is ridiculous. As a man, like, we don't bleed. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we don't need all this extra iron. And so I avoid regular bread like the plague, but I buy that Dave's organic. Like I said, I eat an English muffin every morning for breakfast, and I eat a sandwich every day for lunch now. I mean, and now I will say it took 3 years on the program. So don't think it's going to be like, oh, I'm going to go vitamin A free and my celiac's healed in a year. No, right. I tried it. I tried it at the 2-year mark because I had heard other people on the program had, there was 2 or 3 people. I mean, because obviously the program's relatively new. And there was only 2 or 3 people that said that they felt like they could eat gluten again. I'm like, and that kept me motivated. That kept me. There were times when I was like, God, I would love a piece of cheese. It was like, because that was one of my favorite things, and the hardest thing to give up. And I'm like, if I don't have to suffer with this for the rest of my life, it's worth to keep going. Yeah. And then it just became after 2 years, it just became my life. I don't even think about it anymore. But by the 3rd year, and the reason I've always felt like celiac was an allergy is when my seasonal allergies basically had gone away. And I was like, you know what? I was at it was a church function, it was a homecoming, and they were having fried chicken, and it was from Parker. I don't know if anybody knows about Parker's in Wilson, but they had fried chicken and corn sticks and everything from Parker's. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this fried chicken, and I'm going to give me some corn sticks today because my allergies have been good. I said, I'm going to try it. And so I sat down and ate it, and I was like, well, I'll know within about 30 minutes. It'll hit me.
Yeah.
Waited an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and I didn't have any reaction. I was like, well, okay. So after that, I actually went to the grocery store. I bought a loaf of that day. Again, that's when I started eating today's killer bread. And I bought a loaf of that bread, and I made a sandwich every day for a week just to try. I was like, I kind of make myself have a reaction, and it just never happened. So that's how I knew. Like I said, if you are celiac and you do try it, like I said, definitely do the program. Do it very strictly. Like I said, the first 2 years I was very strict. I mean, I ate almost zero vitamin A.
Did you have blood levels before and after? Did you get your blood checked?
No, that's what I'm saying. I do everything low cost as possible. I mean, even my testosterone labs. I mean, I went to I think it's one of these online companies, and you just go get your blood drawn. I did my own labs. It wasn't until I had a job where they required me to get health insurance, and it was like, okay, I'll go to the regular doctor. I was actually ordering the Clomid from overseas. It was cheap. And I was like, well, I got insurance. I'll go to the doctor. And I actually got the doctor because it's kind of the Clomid is an off use type thing. And I actually got a doctor to go along with it. And so from that point forward, I had, spent, well, really, it's such a ripoff. The medical system's a ripoff. Anybody I know knows that.
Did you have detox reactions during that
long road? The first, it was funny. And I was somebody who, Mexican food, I love Mexican food, or used to. Now it's everything is way too spicy. But when I ate it every day for lunch. And the funny thing was when I went vitamin A free, and it's probably about 4 or 5 days in, and I hadn't eaten anything spicy. And you know how everybody, jokes about, well, you eat spicy, you're going to feel it the next day. Well, like 4 or 5 days, it was like evidently my body just said, we're getting all this crap out. And I mean, it burnt me up. I mean, I hadn't eaten anything spicy in a week. Wow. But that was my very first memorable, because it was memorable, trust me. my body said, we're getting this stuff out now. And and now that you're not eating it. And then like I said, then you'd have spells for 2 or 3 days where I'd feel a little tired, might have some headache. The headaches were the worst. It's a combination. I think some of that is your copper levels and zinc levels, and all those things are just trying to level out. But yeah, I could always tell when I was having a bile dump, and then I would get a acne bump here or there, little things like that. Those are pretty much my main detox reactions. It was early on in the program when I first started, so we didn't really know about slowing down or anything like that. I mean, it was a while before everybody kind of was like, everybody in the group was like, okay, we need to cut back on some of the fiber, maybe cut back on some of the zinc, and when we're having these issues.
No, for sure. I think it's interesting and fascinating. I had a thought today where it's like, you stop consuming this toxic poison, and it takes a few days for your body to be like, okay, it's safe to come out now.
Yeah.
And before that, your body is just such a miracle machine that it just keeps storing it and storing it and storing it to protect you. And then it's almost like, is it safe to come out? Is it safe to let this loose? And that's why I think at first, at sometimes during the first 2 weeks, I almost felt better than I did at like week 4 and week 5 and week 6.
Right. Yeah, I remember that as well. Yeah. But that's why I need to stick with it, because I was like, I hadn't felt this good in a long time.
You hit it on the head of like, I think at first you go through, for me, it's been very easy not to say no to these foods because of reading Grant Ginro's book and watching Dr. Garrett Smith's live streams. I always knew that these foods were kind of bad for us. But I was like, I'll train it. I'll sweat it out. I'll poop it out. I'll work it off. Once I saw what they were doing on a molecular level to the epithelial tissue, once I saw the damage that they could cause, I was like, oh, I'll never touch that food again, you know? And maybe there'll be a world, 2-3 years down where but I can't even look at it as a treat anymore.
Yeah.
Because how can we look at something as a treat that caused us that damage? But then I like to hear, your years in, you go ahead and try to eat that thing that used to cause you pain, and there's no pain because you allowed your body to fully heal and regenerate. So now you can get away with it.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably the number one thing. I mean, anybody who's had gluten problems, it's torture when you're traveling, when you're trying to, you're visiting friends, family, and they're eating something that's got gluten in it and there's nothing to eat. If you've ever lived that life, it's not fun, and I only did it for, like I said, I did it for about 7 or 8 years. Like I said, I just suffered up until that point. I mean, I just said, well, this is my life. And I just had constant stomach cramps and I lived in the bathroom.
No, there's some people who can't even be near it. They can't even ingest a food that was handled in the same area as it.
Exactly. And to me, that just shows extreme vitamin A toxicity. I honestly believe all the issues I had growing up and knowing, like the asthma, all those I had severe asthma. I had pneumonias, all the, 2 or 3 times. And of course, when I grew up, I'm 47. So back, everybody smoked too. So, I mean, it was just constant toxicity.
Yeah. Tell me about your testosterone journey. You went from 170 to 500 to all the way up to 900.
Yeah, when I did the program, because I was fluctuating and I was getting worried because with the Clomid, it would fluctuate. I'd go about every 6 months and get my labs done, and they would fluctuate. It'd be 600, and it might be 450, and then it would drop back down. And that was with the Clomid, and I was getting nervous. And then I started the vitamin A program. And it's probably about, I don't know, I can't remember. Like I said, it's been 5 years now. It was probably about a year in when I started with the doctor, and it shot up to I think it was 960 or something the very first time, with the Clomid. But I was so scared. If you've ever, and I'm sure there's other men out there, if you've ever suffered with issues, the last thing you ever want to do is go back to that again.
Right.
So I was reluctant to come off of it because I was just nervous. And so I did stay on the Clomid with the program up until about the same time when I realized the celiac was gone, the allergies were gone. I was like, you know what? It's been it had been fluctuating. It would fluctuate between 750 and 900. I was like, and of course they started going up on the prices of the Clomid too. They didn't sell the generic anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I told the doctor, I said, look, I'm going to try coming off of it. And he kind of agreed. He's like, look, I don't think you need it anymore.
Right.
And so I came off of it, did 6 months for the next test, and everything's functioning fine. Everything felt fine. And it came back, I think, at 525, which I'm 47 years old, and that's actually normal to above normal for 47 years old. And, I've been putting on muscle at the gym consistently. Everything works functionally. The best thing about it, Clomid, I don't know, it has whatever function it makes it work. It kills your mental libido, it seems like. Huh. And the first thing I noticed off of it is at the gym, I would go to the gym, and of course, there's just beautiful women there, and I just, for a long time, I just didn't care. It was like, whatever. And it all of a sudden, it was like, I started noticing, I started looking around like, wow, man, And so I was like, okay, this is different,
That's how you're supposed to feel.
You're right. Exactly. Normal, and so it's really been great. Like I said, I can't sing the praises enough. Like I said, I could sit down and do a full page of issues that I've had and overcome. The biggest thing was, a lot of people believe, and here's the other thing again, there's so many issues, just like chafing. People have to wear these special, underwear things because they get chafing in their legs, or they get heat, quote unquote, heat rash.
You're
And,
right.
and the funny thing is, I don't think there's nothing more than just a vitamin A detox reaction, because
Yep.
I don't get heat rash anymore. All last summer I played golf, 100-degree heat, never once. But used to, I would have to constantly wear some kind of zinc cream or something now, just because I just chafe
Yeah.
and like I said, there's so many. Like I said, that's what I'm saying. It's just a laundry list of things that people, the average person, suffers with that you don't have to. Um, the hardest part I have is what I'm telling people is this is what do A, B, C, and D. It's like their eyes just kind of glass over, and it's
Yeah.
like I got to do that. And I'm like, well, that, or you just keep suffering. I think there's this pastor I follow online, and and he'll say, look, you can just keep suffering. If you don't want to change, just suffer. Suffering. He calls it suffer and die, but
Yeah.
he's die to your human spirit. But that's the way I feel about it.
Some people get addicted to the pain and addicted to the suffering. Some people are identifying with their disease. They're embodying it.
Yes.
They're going to marches and runs, and they're putting it in their bio. And
Yep.
when you kind of give them a solution, especially as one is like simple. Let's be honest. This is hard work, but it's really a simple answer.
It's very simple.
And they say, well, no, that can't be. How dare you tell me that's like there's doctors who went to school for 8 years and they don't say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I go on some of these celiac because obviously I was a member of all these Facebook pages and things when I was
Yeah.
sick, and it's like they almost get out the pitchforks. I say I'll go on there and be like, look, you guys, you don't have to suffer. Just try it. Just try it.
Right.
And they will literally just about run you off the page with pitchforks. It's
Yeah.
like they want to be sick. It's mind blowing.
It's like Dr. Smith says too, toxins beget toxins, and once you get caught in that one-way trapdoor and that loophole, I'm rereading Grant Genroux's book, Poisoning for Profits. And, he proves without a shadow of a doubt that these vitamin A deficiency studies were actually proving vitamin A toxicity. And one of the symptoms in these deficiency studies where they really used pork fat and also milk protein, casein,
Yep.
right? We know that those are two sources of vitamin A. One of the symptoms was failure to thrive, right? They had that in the list. And I keep thinking back to that of if you're playing golf and you're getting chafing, if you are, sensitive to smells, if you are just feeling low energy and you don't want to work out, if you're walking around and you see a beautiful woman and there's nothing it's
there
just on the blank,
Yeah.
these are all symptoms of failure to thrive.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating of, we got a lot of people, not a lot of people, but of course there's resistance. It can't be that simple, or, it's not that toxic. But when you look around at the fortification programs, when you look around at glyphosate, which is causing people to not detox as well, which is, it really is death by 1,000 cuts. And, I go into an airport, which I'm in often, and I'd say more than 60% of people have some type of skin issue going on.
Yes.
Adult acne, eczema, psoriasis, and a lot of these things go hand in hand. As Grant had.
And some are really bad. I can look at them and then I can just about see, if you see what they're eating, you can there it is. Yeah.
I remember the first time I read Grant's book, I get off the plane, my jaw's on the floor. I see somebody covered in eczema, and then I see another person with acne, and then I look at the fast food place and it's add cheese, add bacon.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'll never look at the world the same.
No, and the spice, I almost call it an epidemic. The spices, the spiciness. It's like in restaurants, and they know it's addictive,
The flavor.
and everything is, well, now we've got spicy this, and now it's even hotter, and now it's even hotter. It's just like a drug. You can't get enough, and it all clicks once you start. Anybody with high intelligence. I mean, when you look at this stuff, it's no brainer. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. So how long did it take for your libido to come back on the low vitamin A diet?
Well, honestly, I mean, I think within a few months, within a month or two of coming off the Clomid. I mean,
Yeah.
and like I said, and I can't say specifically with the vitamin A diet as far as the libido because I was on the Clomid originally.
Yes.
And again, I don't fault anybody. I mean, it's the most horrible. Low T is the most horrible thing a man can experience.
And a
And so
lot. Yeah.
right. And so I don't fault anybody and I know Dr. Smith's opinion and some of the other people's opinion. Well, anything you're putting in your body that's not a nutrient, it's a poison or toxin. And that's why I did want to come off of it because I knew it probably was holding me back from getting to the ideal self that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But for the first year or two, if you've got low T, man, just do it. I mean, if your doctor will prescribe it, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
It's cheap and it does not affect you permanently. People read all these horror stories about it affecting your eyes or something. I really think that's vitamin A toxicity too.
Yeah.
And since if you're going to do the vitamin A diet and you're strict with it, you don't have to worry about vitamin A poisoning.
No, yeah. I'm not against testosterone replacement therapy. I'm not against steroids per se. What I am.
I'm kind of against the steroids, the straight up testosterone,
Right.
just because you can't but with the Clomid, your body, is doing its own natural levels.
Yeah.
It's controlling it. With the testosterone, your body's not in control anymore. Which I mean, I guess if you can do the low dose, I mean, it's just as long as you don't get carried away with it. Because when one of the live streams Dr. Smith did, it made a lot of sense, and that's why these guys are dying early or heart attacks. Anything testosterone wise, any of these things, dopamine, all these things break down into toxic byproducts, and that your liver has to handle.
Yeah.
And so these guys that are mega dosing on steroids and all these sorts of things, you're doing nothing but poisoning yourself.
Yeah, my thing with testosterone replacement therapy and going on steroids is a lot of guys are desperate. A lot of guys are done looking for answers.
Yeah.
Their T's gone low for whatever reason, mostly toxicity, mostly deficiency. Then you have the overtraining conversation, and then they might go to the herbs at first. They might have a honeymoon period with the herbs.
Yeah, I did all that. I did the herbs.
Yeah. And those might work at first, but then the whole duration paradox thing, and then they give up, and they submit. And I think majority of them, if they knew there was this other way, if they knew why it happened, and if they knew how to reverse it, they'd much rather just change their lifestyle than shoot themselves with a needle once a week for the rest of their life.
Exactly. And honestly, like I said, the hardest part is getting a doctor to prescribe the Clomid because it is off label. But to me, I think from everything I've read, it's the safest way. And honestly, if you're like I said, if you're under 200 like I was, I mean, I'm an example. I mean, like I said, you don't have to, because that vitamin A diet might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 2 years. You don't want to live that way for 2 years. So I mean, if you're that low, then I'm all for the Clomid. I mean, like I said, to me it's harmless for what in the dosage you're taking. As long as your LH and everything is that part's working, then you don't. Like I said, I don't think you have to do the TRT. Do that with the vitamin A diet, and over time you'll just come off the Clomid and be normal. Now if you're just borderline, I mean, if you're like 350, and you want to be 500, then I think you could just do the diet. And I think, yeah, most
Yeah.
likely, yeah, within 6 months to a year, you're good.
Do you take any supplements now?
Mostly just the ones that that are on the program, the molybdenum, selenium, zinc. Um, I do still, and I had done this for years before, and I did my own research on the glycine and taurine. I know Dr. Smith's not a big fan of them, but I had taken it every night before bed for years,
Yeah.
and I just never stopped.
Yeah.
Because I do think you get that bile dump in the middle of the night, and it does bind to that bile. I mean, everything that I've read, it binds to that bile and it stops it from damaging your tissues.
Mhm.
And so I've just seen it as just kind of a life extension thing.
No, yeah, I like a little. I was doing glycine, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago before bed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I would do some glycine with some magnesium before bed, and
Yeah,
it does.
yeah,
You dream harder, you sleep deeper,
you do.
and you know, I think a lot of us are just, before we got onto the low vitamin A diet, the mantra was, "What can I find to fix this? What can I add to the pot?" And
Yep.
now it's like, oh yeah, light bulb moment. It's not about what I'm adding; it's about what I'm taking away.
That's what you're taking away. And matter of fact, when felt like I was quote unquote healed, I started researching the low vitamin A cheeses. What would be the lowest? Like provolone, and then there's like there's like a really aged Swiss has a relatively low vitamin A amount.
Interesting.
And I did that for, I don't know, maybe a month or two, but then it was like, do I really need this? I'm like, it's kind of like when you haven't been doing it for all these years, you're like, I mean, it's okay,
Yeah,
but I don't have to have it. And I know I'm literally putting a toxin in my body, even if it's a low amount, to consciously be able to do that. And so I pretty much stopped doing that as well.
you said you had like a long list of things that improved. Did you notice anything with your hair?
Um, it grows faster and thicker, and I've stopped graying. Like I haven't like got color back,
Right.
but I was graying like really, really fast, and it felt like really young for my age.
Yeah.
And my family, like my dad, he didn't have like a full gray head of hair, and when he passed away, he was 65.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm getting gray like really quick. I'm looking down at my arms and I'm looking at my arm hair. And I have seen some darkening in other places, like my chest, the hairs on my chest now. I don't have many
Yeah.
grays there anymore. So I do think over time, it will get, like I said, it will get darker. But I think that's one of those things that's going to be just a slow process.
No, you see, Grant Genrou said his gray hair reversed. Your hair looks nice and brown and dark. Dark hair. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'll be 48 in August, so I mean,
but it's another thing I've observed where, our fathers and our grandfathers seem to have not gone as gray as quick and early as a lot of my friends. As a lot of people, in their you're seeing guys in their 20s now even go gray.
absolutely bald. I mean, it's amazing that the men my age and they're just bald. I mean, but I look at what they're eating. They're posting it on Facebook and
Yeah,
bragging about it, and I'm going, dude, it's killing you. And in the next sentence, he's at the doctor for migraines. I used to suffer with those. He's at the doctor with severe migraines. One of my friends, and I'm like, and he's
yeah,
bald, and he's eating this barbecue and hot dogs and all these things, and I'm just,
yeah.
and I try to tell him, but it's one ear and out the other.
What yeah, it's not what we tell them, it's kind of how we tell them. And but first
Yeah.
step is doing what you're doing, and you're leading by example. What are some of the other things that got better? Like some of the, I like to say, people think, I had a guy yesterday, big account, 50, 60,000 followers. And I think he replied to one of my posts, and he's like, I eat eggs every day and I'm just fine, man. You don't know what you're doing.
Oh, I did too. A long time ago. Yeah.
And then I looked at his page, and he's pretty much got a full head of gray hair. You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So, and he looks like he's probably in his 40s.
Yep.
So I look at it like, hey, good for you, man. If it's working for you, keep going. But then I can't help but think, you got a whole head of gray hair in your 40s. I don't know if everything is fine. And a lot of people, I think, are in denial, or they become accustomed of living with a condition or little things gone wrong, and they just learn to live with it.
They call it aging. They'll say, "Well, I'm 45 now. It's how life is."
I can't stand that type of talk.
Yeah, I play golf with guys that are 10 years younger than I am, and they're taking ibuprofen to make it through the round. They're like, yeah, I took my ibuprofen this morning. I'm like, really? I'm like, I mean, I go to the gym. I go to the gym sometimes 3-4 days a week, and I play golf on 18 holes on Sundays. I mean, I don't take any pain meds. I mean, it's like
you start to see all these conditions, and you start to see all these industries that make money off of people being sick and in pain. And then you start to have a whole other conversation of, if everybody was thriving, if everybody had a clean liver, if everyone was doing, a low vitamin A diet and prospering, a lot of these industries will go bankrupt.
They really would. They really would. I really believe. I mean, and it's really. I play golf with some guy. I've got an older guy group I play with about once or twice a year. But I've known them for. It's funny, when I started playing with them, I was in my 20s and they were in their 40s, and now I'm in my 40s and they're in their 60s and 70s. But I can just see the aging. And there's this one guy, and his hair is real thin. He's got what call liver spots or whatever, like all over, and and I know what it's from. I mean, and they think it's normal aging, but I know it's not.
Yeah. Before I was always on certain things like the bison. I knew about zinc, knew about the soluble fiber. A lot of these things I was already hip to, and I was already suspicious of a lot of the fads like the liver. I got carried away and I was doing the raw eggs, but I always kind of had something in the back of my mind. But one of the things that I would see a lot on Twitter, on some of the big guy accounts, even in their 40s and 50s, was just this acceptance of aging and this just mantra of like, that's just the way it is. I got to do foam roller and I got to take collagen because I'm cramped and I have joint pain. And I always looked at those posts, and they would make me angry. And I was like, speak for yourself, And I think one of the problems is we have these cultural editors and societal programmers who are influential on the mass thought of, I'll give you a prime example. There's certain countries in Asia that don't experience negative symptoms of menopause. And the reason they don't is because their name for it is like the new spring.
Yeah.
And they celebrate it, right? So they have this whole mass culture thought of like, this is a celebration, this is a new beginning. Whereas in the West and in America, it's like, well, you're going to feel this, you're going to feel that, it's going to suck, it's going to be the worst, you're going to get all these problems, and then we see people in the Love Your Liver program. We see people who, some of my clients and people, it's like, you don't have to live like that.
Yeah.
You don't. These people we're seeing right in front of our face, outliers every day, who are defying all these societal norms of how you're supposed to age and how you're supposed to feel, and to me, I feel like A, it's a superpower, and B, like we won the lottery,
Yep. I mean, my mom, and this is really kind of a blessing in a lot of ways. After my dad passed away, she was having a hard time, so I went to stay with her for a while, and it was right about the time that I started the diet, and she wanted to help me with it or whatever, and so she started on at the same time I did.
Wow.
And she's 72 years old, and honestly, she probably looks 20 years younger than what, and she's 72. After my dad, yeah, I'll say she's done it 50-70%. And because she never 100% bought in, but she knew it's like, well, this makes sense and this makes sense. And, I mean, she still smoked a cigarette a day. I mean, one of those things. I mean, people have
Well,
their vices.
you'll see that, you hear story. My great aunt Margaret, rest in peace, had 2 cigarettes a day and, drank a Manhattan a day. Right.
Yeah,
And she lived till 95. And this is a thing that comes up a lot with people on Twitter and X but she didn't have the vitamin A toxicity her whole life.
correct.
Right. So she was able to get away with it, where you see people now in our generation where they're getting hit way harder, way earlier.
Right. And there's, like you said, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, it's just like, Dr. Smith said the other day, I didn't realize, when you do fluoridated water and copper pipes, I mean, the fluoridation came along in the past, 40 years, 50 years. And, I mean, that wasn't in your grandmother's generation.
Right.
I mean, that's just one paper cut. I mean, you tack them all on. Matter of fact, I remember distinctly when I was young, because I took a bath when I was a kid, and we had well water. And it wasn't long after the county came through, brought in the county water system. And that's when I started having the rashes and all the celiac issues and all that. It literally was within, and I blatantly remember, I'm like, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
the stuff started happening. So, and I still, to this day, I bought a zero water filter. And the little meter that comes with it. And I tested the well water, because they still have part of it on well water and part of it's on county.
Yeah.
And literally it was like 5 parts per million in the well. I mean, it's almost clear.
Right.
And when I tested the county water, it was like 700 or 800 or something crazy, So, I mean, it's full of crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom, she keeps up 1.5 acre yard by herself. She puts in mulch. I mean, by the trailer load, she hooks up my dad's pickup truck, goes to the, landscape place, gets big loads of bark mulch, and with a pitchfork, and puts it out on 1.5 acre lot at 72 years old. There's not many women who can do that. And this was somebody who had rheumatoid arthritis so bad, 10 years ago, that she could barely get up out of a recliner. So again, and she initially went gluten free, which that made it a little bit better. But I solely believe her starting this diet with me, doing the beans and on the regular and all those sorts of things, and cutting out the majority of their vitamin A, that's where she's at today.
And then she sees the results. She's feeling amazing. She's looking amazing. And she's like, all right, let me keep this going.
Right. My brother, and he was a skeptic, he would always make, oh, you're doing the vitamin A thing, whatever. Well, about, a year ago, he went to the doctor, and where he works, he works at Wake Med in Cary. And he said, there, I guess you get like incentives depending on what your labs, when you go get your physicals, you get incentives. Well, he came back with high triglycerides and all kinds of problems. And he messaged me one day. He said, okay, he said, tell me about this stupid diet you're doing or whatever. And so I got, sat down, explained it to him. And this is about 1.5 years ago. And he started doing it. And all of a sudden, like, he started feeling better. He's like, man, I feel better. He's like, all these sort of things. And he also had the low T again. So genetic, what is it? The genetics is the bullet and everything, what loads the gun, the saying. But and so
loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger.
Right. And so he was on the Clomid and all that kind of stuff. And even with the Clomid, his was hanging around 300-400. He was even struggling, just like I was before this diet.
Yeah.
And his shot up to like 650 within a year.
Wow.
And he was like, wow. He's like, and he said in his labs came back perfect. And he's sold on it now. And I'm trying. He's got 2 kids. I think something for people out there, the hardest thing is getting your family on board with it. I think his wife is not exactly 100% on board, and the kids, 2 little boys that have severe eczema. I mean, I have every vitamin A toxicity symptom, and of course they love mac and cheese and all the just anything and everything vitamin A. And it's like, okay, well, I told my brother, I was like, well, it worked for you. you need to get your kids, healed,
Yeah.
but it's his family, it's his life. So
They got to play, what I do for my family is I just play the Dr. Garrett Smith live stream
yeah.
as if it's like a talk radio.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All my wife had to do was hear a few of the live streams to be like, oh crap,
Yeah.
because she already knew, because she loves the children and loves the babies so much that she actually, our first child 14 years ago, she knew not to take multivitamins because of the vitamin A.
Yep.
She knew
Yep.
to avoid, she was big on the tretinoin and avoiding all the cosmetic skincare. Just her love for her children, like, put her in a state where, okay, I heard that you can overdose on that. I heard that that causes birth defects.
Yep.
Like, her motherly intuition. And I think a lot of us have one of the great things about this diet is like, oh, I don't have to eat vegetables. Like,
Yeah.
that's easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we get psyoped and brainwashed into, like, for me, I was eating a carrot a day, a sweet potato a day. I was trying to get my dark spinach every day. And I was like, and it wasn't because I liked them,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
because I was told by the experts that that's what we were, that's how to have.
Oh yeah, I'd put spinach in my omelets and everything. Like I said, I was eating six because like I said, I've been bodybuilding, or not, I'll call it bodybuilding, but working out for 12 years now, and and I was eating 6 to 8 eggs a day. I mean, that was the healthy thing to do.
Have you seen changes to your physique on a low vitamin A diet?
Yes, I had always had this. I won't call it scrawny. I was lanky.
Right.
I'm 6'2".
Skinny fat?
What now?
Would you call it skinny fat or just lanky?
I was just lanky. Because I was pretty good because I am diet conscious of managing my weight. I was never really lean. I never had a six pack. The closest I had that when I was in college, and I was running, 5 miles a day kind of thing. I mean, there was a time I didn't get close to that, but in my older age, no. The biggest thing was, like, my brother was always, he was always the more broad or stocky one. And what I noticed was, after, like I said, when I came, it was about time I come again. Everything just kind of came together on the third year. That's why I tell everybody, if you're doing this diet, you need to stick to it for at least 3 years.
Yeah.
And it was like on the third year, when I came off the Clomid, all of a sudden everything just started filling out. Even my mom made a comment like, you're getting really broad. It was like, yeah, I can tell my clothes aren't fitting. I'm like, it's starting to get where, around the waist, because I do a lot of golf exercises, because that's I want to play golf for the rest of my life. So, so I do like a lot of these torso oblique machines and things. I've got, all the weight that's on the machine, I can do all of it now. And I noticed my muscles around just my waist has got bigger, just because my muscles are getting bigger. It's not fat, it's muscle.
Yeah.
And that's been the greatest thing. Is like, I keep a note, because I'm just I'm very analytical, and I carry a notebook with me to the gym. I write down everything that I do. And the most amazing thing is, like, literally every single week, I either go up a rep or two, or I go up 5 pounds on an exercise every single week, week in and week out. Now I do take a break every 6 to 8 workouts. I'll do like a half weight, half the amount of weight, kind of a little bit of periodization. But that has been the biggest thing, but when I had the low T, that was the most frustrating thing. It was like, I felt like I was actually going backwards. I'm going to the gym, I'm like, I have less energy, I'm doing less weight. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And that was the most frustrating thing.
No, instead of getting quote unquote older, instead of getting joint pain, and you're actually getting stronger.
Right. Just for instance, like I said, I'm 47. I haven't, because I'm doing more golf oriented, I don't do as much bench pressing anymore, but I would say I probably could bench about 250. Deadlift, I could probably deadlift around 400. I rep 320. I rep yesterday 335.
there's some accounts on Twitter that tell me you shouldn't even be deadlifting over 40.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're not supposed to deadlift. But to me, that's the greatest thing. I can tell the biggest difference squatting and deadlifting with the golf swing.
Yeah.
I could
Has
definitely.
your golf game improved?
Yes. It's which I had taken. Yeah, I did oh, that was the other thing. When I started the vitamin A, by the time I started the vitamin A diet, I actually bought a rental property and I spent a year and a half. I worked full time, went to the gym, and remodeled that house. It took about a year and a half. I mean, I had the energy to do that. Now, this was 6 years ago or 5 years ago. So, I mean, I had, I was 42 versus 47.
Yeah.
But I did that. And then 2 years ago, the house that I'm in right now, I bought it. And then I didn't play golf for that year because I spent, about 11 months remodeling this house myself. And so I just got back into about a year ago. And like I said, I'm already back, shooting in the 80s again. And, so but I can definitely tell coordination is better. I'm not getting sore. I mean, the only time I get a little bit of sore playing golf is if I deadlift way too much weight right that week. I mean, there's just a certain amount of stress. You put 400 pounds of stress, it's not going to be the same within 2 days. And so,
Sure.
but I did start a new program. I read it was an article by a professional baseball player, and he said that they play, I don't know how many games. Their season is so long. And
162.
to what now?
162 games.
Yeah, 162 games. And he said the hardest thing to do is to try to actually maintain their physical fitness during that time period because their body gets burned out.
Yeah.
And what he actually said was, because I was going the other direction, I would say, well, I'll do less weight, I'll do more reps. And he actually come out and said it was actually better to do higher weight, low reps because you don't burn your muscles out. And he said baseball players started to do that, and the ones around him, and all of a sudden they were actually making gains during the season rather than going downhill through the season and needing a break. So I've been doing that for the past 3 months, and because I knew I'm going to start playing a lot more golf here in the spring, summer.
Yeah.
And it's worked. I'll do like 3 sets of 3, but that's all you need, to maintain it. And I'm still gaining strength. So that
people will say, people will see me and they'll, they'll make a comment, "Oh, you must work out every day." And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes not really, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised what the right diet can do, what the right sleep can do, and just building up a base.
What it's saying is muscles are made in the kitchen. I mean, and it's true.
It is.
That.
Yeah. You go back and you look and you see these pictures from the 1940s and 1950s of guys on the beach, and they're just naturally ripped and jacked. Mm-hmm. And there was no gyms like there are today. There was no supplements like there was today. There's no access to Clomid and TRT.
Creatine. I mean, it didn't exist.
There's nothing. And their physiques are superior to most guys today who are doing all the tricks and the herbs and the supplements.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing is just and I'm guilty of it, is the modern lifestyle. You're not as active. You're just not physically as active because you just everything's just automated. And I do think that affects a little bit, but I do think it was just cleaner. I think the environment was just, the foods were cleaner. I think everything was cleaner.
We got a really good brain training course in my community, and I'll send it over to you, where the first place I learned it was from a guy who increased his golf game. And it's a hammer drills. You juggle. I don't know if you've seen me juggling the golf ball with the sledgehammer.
I ain't seen that.
So you hit a golf ball with a sledgehammer over and over, and then some mirror image cursive with your non-dominant hand. Mm-hmm. And then some memory drills, and it's actually shown to improve the golf game. Especially, I don't know, are you a righty or a lefty?
I'm right-handed.
So when you start doing things with your left hand, and you start even practicing at the driving range, get a lefty club. if you just start practicing swinging lefty, what happens is you activate the right hemisphere of your brain, and then the hemispheres go into competition with one another, and it actually improves your dominant hand game. It improves your right hand game.
Interesting.
It's,
Yeah, and it's funny because I am left eye, which actually helps with golf. I've read I'm actually left eye dominant. So
yeah,
that does help. And I actually shoot pool left handed, which is kind of weird. Everybody's like, "Why do you shoot?" I was like, "I don't know. It's just the way I've always done it."
dexterous. So have you seen improvements as far as like business and work and like just being motivated to get more money, to do more business?
Yeah, yeah. I'm in real estate, so we're going through a lot of changes right now. So it is kind of in limbo. Um, I think the biggest thing is just um, the cognitive part. I mean, and being able to focus for long periods of time.
Yeah,
I do, some stock trading, day trading, and I can sit and focus on a stock chart for hours, and it does, and and be able to react when you need to react. Because if anybody who's done that, you wait 5-10 minutes, well, you missed it.
right.
And so yeah, I mean, it definitely it helps. It's helped my. I went through a period there where I had like real short attention span.
Yeah,
And it's funny, I almost think if TikTok and things like that are also kind of a toxic behavior, toxic thing, because I don't even really want to look at it anymore. There was a time where like I was constant. It was like I was addicted. I had to, and I wanted to scroll for hours and hours and hours.
yeah.
And now it's like I don't even really want to pick it up. I mean, that's been the biggest change. It's just if you've ever had an addictive personality, and I won't say I had an addictive personality, but there was a time I can remember it was like I had, if I didn't do something, like it's like I've got to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is just kind of have this just evenness about life. Just chill, like I said, even with the real estate industry changing like it is, and this whole lawsuits and all the things that are going on right now, it's kind of like, I'll adapt, whatever it is, I'll do it.
I've noticed such a calmness, I was always a chill guy on the exterior, but now
Hmm.
I'm even really chill on the interior.
Yes, exactly. And I'll tell you the biggest change is I used to have like, I was kind of sort of an introvert in a way, and I would have like crowd anxiety. I
Wow.
mean, it was so bad. Like if I went into a club or I went somewhere, like I had to have a drink. It was like because I was just like anxious. And now the biggest thing is it's like I walk in now and just kind of like, what's up? I mean, it's weird. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
um, and I do think some of that is where your adrenals. I think your adrenals heal from this
Yeah.
program. Like I said, I don't sit around and have the cold hands and cold feet like I used to. I mean, like I said, that I think the adrenals play a big part of that. Um,
I think it's adrenals, I think it's cortisol, and then I think, obviously there's a scientific explanation for all this, and Dr. Garrett Smith is really good at showing us that. But,
mhm.
I just tell people, like, I don't even really need I don't need a study. Like, I am the living proof. You are the living proof. There's
Yep.
uh, there's over 200 people in the Love Your Liver program that are proof. There's 200 people in my group that are proof,
Yep.
every day proving it. And yeah, just like, I remember being in when I was a young kid, and I just didn't care about walking out on stage and just singing and dancing. And
Mhm.
somewhere along the way, I kind of lost that, where, I wasn't nervous going in a room, but it was a different feeling of not like, and now it's like you could put me anywhere, you
Yep.
know, I'll talk in front of anyone. There's no there's a self-confidence boost for sure on this diet.
It is. It is. Your thoughts tend to come to you a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I did just an off the cuff presentation about 3 months ago, somebody invited me to talk on real estate, and I mean, I gave a 15-minute talk, and then just kind of just use some bullet points, and
Yeah.
you know 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I mean, I'd have been like freaking out about it, but like I said, it's just like I said, you just chill, and like I said, there's so many things. Like I said, I have to sit down and make a list of all the things that have improved. And like I said, so when I run into people, I've been guilty years ago. I was always trying to push it on people, my health stuff, and now I'm just kind of like, if somebody asks me, hey, I'm gladly give you, my knowledge, and I don't charge for it, and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I kind of, I was going to try to do, honestly, health is my passion. I mean, I started when I was in college. I went to NC State. By the way, go Pack this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You live in North Carolina?
Yeah. In Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, and I mean, I was the type of person when I was in college, I started bodybuilding pretty heavy. I realized, I was real lanky then, and I was looking around and I saw the guys getting the girls, and it was like, okay, I know what I need to do. But I was the type of person that, I would get like the muscle media. I came a long time. They discovered the mega fats, and Bill Phillips was doing the creatine came out and all that kind of stuff. But I was the type of person, I would get the magazine and then I would read the studies. And, NC State had an awesome library. You could go to the basement of the library and I would pull the actual studies from the library and read, and this is before the internet,
Yeah.
or I mean, we had internet, but before anything was on it.
Right.
So I've always kind of been into health, and it's kind of been my passion. The hardest thing was, trying to make a living, trying to do it is kind of the hard part, trying to make any money from it.
No, yeah. And
Yeah.
unless you go the conventional mainstream route where, you're in bed with big pharma and all
Right.
that.
I looked into that. Yeah, I was going to go and see North Carolina has very strict laws. Like you can't get any nutrition advice unless you have a nutrition degree, which means you have to go get indoctrinated, and then if you give advice that goes against, you can actually lose your license for just not giving the right advice. So it's kind of like, I just kind of threw my hands up, and it's kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
this is my hobby, and, and I'll do it for me and my family and anybody that asks.
Yeah, I thought about going to get my doctorate or going to get certified, and then I realized I would have to unlearn majority of that stuff.
Yes.
And then I realized like it kind of doesn't mean that much these days because majority of the certifications and the labels are failing us.
They are. Well, when I saw that the North Carolina Nutrition School was sponsored by Pepsi and Kellogg's, and you're like, what you're learning. You're not learning anything how to sell more of their products.
Have you noticed that your relationships have improved?
Yeah, I mean, which I've never really had a big problem with, getting along with people.
Right.
Being in real estate, I've always kind of been a people person. So, and like I said, I've been focused financially, in my business, and and that's one of those things. I think that's a pitfall. It's another topic, but I think that's a pitfall that a lot of these people, and Twitter tends to push this. Just focus on your career, focus on yourself, and and the problem is I've done that. The problem is that can be a very lonely life. And once you shut yourself off, to get back out into the world, you almost have to make yourself do it. Because you get in a routine. I'm focusing on my health, I'm focusing on my career, I'm focusing on my business, and and then you forget, oh, there's a whole nother world out there that you're not living. But that's has nothing to do nutritionally. But that's just something that I've realized. Okay, at some point you got to get back out in the world, and I will say, that's one difficult challenge when you are doing a diet like this. The eating out part. I found it's just easier just to cook, and a lot of times before I go to events. Sometimes I'll eat before I go.
Yeah.
And then there's sometimes I call it my cheat meal. Obviously I'm going to avoid pork. I'm going to avoid tomatoes. I'm going to avoid the obvious things. But, like in real estate, they'll have brokers luncheons and things like that. And so I'll get the least, vitamin A things I can get, and I'll just call it my cheat meal. So, I mean, it's not like I'm that strict. I mean, I'm not like, especially now that I'm healed,
Right.
or quote unquote, healed, that, that's kind of how I do now.
I hear you. And that's wise words for people out there who, don't want to go too strict, don't want to go too crazy, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, to whether it's a year, it all depends on time and dose, depends how old you are, depends how toxic you are. For me,
I wish I could have started this 20 years ago, because then, like I said, you wouldn't have to be strict at all. I mean, just avoid the most highest vitamin A foods, and you probably would have been fine.
Yeah. I wish I could have started this in college baseball and even high school, because even though I don't think I was quote unquote toxic and poisoned, I still think it was weakening me. I still think I think there's a lot of side effects and symptoms that are happening that people are just overlooking, whether it's ADD, whether it's less strength in the gym, whether it's less focus, whether it's low energy. I look back even as a teen and in my 20s of, there were some days where I felt great. There was other days where I didn't, and I could never really pinpoint why that was happening. So I would have loved to seen myself, I have guys in my group in their 20s who are fully on board, and they're seeing crazy improvements. And like, if I'm about to be 40, you're in your late 40s. If we're leveling up and improving at our age, I think there's something to it, even for guys in their 20s, because a lot of young guys will reply on my post of like, this is nonsense. I eat that and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, man, I get it. I was in my 20s once too. But maybe you're not fine. Maybe you could be way better.
Yeah.
Because the more you read and the more you look into this, it's there's nothing essential about it. I think the essential part about it is that it just happens to be in everything in some type of amount.
Right.
So,
Well, the world, they got on board with the gluten-free thing, which is great, for people that need it. The problem is they still see vitamin A as it's a positive thing. And so they're cramming it into every food. I mean, like I said, when I go to the grocery store, I mean, there's like 3 aisles I can shop on. I mean, that's the hard part. I mean, you really have to look to avoid it, even more so than gluten.
When I'm traveling, when I'm eating out, and when I'm traveling and I like to go on a low vitamin A diet, I'll go to a steakhouse, pick one, and I'll ask for a grilled sirloin with, no seasonings, no sauce, and I'll just eat that. And then I'll go to like a supermarket and, maybe I'll grab an apple or a banana. There's even, I'll grab, you can get an instant rice and you can get like a can of beans, and there's Whole Foods has a nice glass jar of beans, and I'll just eat them with a spoon, have an apple and a piece of jerky, and I'm good to go.
Oh yeah, I meant to say that's what I do for my golf snacks. I buy beef jerky, and then I do the kind oatmeal bars.
Okay.
And so that's what I do at the turn, and that keeps me energized from around.
So that's just like plain oatmeal.
Yeah, pretty much. It's got a little bit of honey in it. I mean, like I said, again, it's not about being perfect. That's what I try to tell people. Because I mean, we're allowed. I mean, we evolved with vitamin A. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden, there's vitamin A in the environment, and our body doesn't know what to do with it. I mean, so the biggest thing is just keeping the levels as low as absolutely possible. And that little bit of carotenoids that's in that honey, I mean, your body can handle that. I mean, obviously, I'm living proof. I never avoided honey in this diet in 5 years. So, I mean, I didn't eat it every day, but I mean, it's one of the things.
That's a great point. That's why I'm so passionate and fascinated and having to interview as many people as I can on this, because there's different ways to do it. There's multiple ways to make it work.
Yep.
You don't have to go insane and obsessive and super boring. And once you feel great, so that was the other thing I wanted to ask you. Do you drink coffee?
No, I never felt great on coffee. I gave it up years ago. I love it. I love the smell of it. A mocha latte is the best thing to taste in the world.
Yeah.
But I tried it. I went through three different. It was like three different phases in my life where I would drink it for about 6 months, and I noticed I started feeling like garbage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, why am I feeling like garbage? First time was in my early 20s. I did it again in my 30s, and then I did it again in my late 30s,
Okay.
early 40s, and it was like I can't do this, and so it was that I didn't have to give it up because I wasn't drinking it, thank goodness. So when the diet started, I'm like, okay, well, I don't need that.
Cool.
But my liver, like I said, that's how I knew. Also, my liver was obviously very toxic.
Yeah.
And not change subject, but I think that's also why my daughter, looking back at my ex-wife,
Yeah.
she was super toxic. I mean,
Yeah.
way toxic. Dr. Smith says, angry, toxic liver, angry person. And she was, and I mean, she was so toxic she couldn't take birth. If she took birth control, she was sick. Which
Yeah.
birth control is not good for you, obviously. But she was to the point she was already so toxic she couldn't even take it.
Right.
So I do think that has something to do. All these childhood cancers. I definitely think it's coming. Toxicity is being passed down from the mother in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, brother. I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why we're so passionate about health and what we're doing is because, you can save lives with this information.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And like you said with your brother,
Mhm.
people get desperate enough or incentivized,
Yep.
and then I
Yeah.
think all healthcare and all businesses and all insurances should have an incentivization program.
There should be something, of some sort. But like I said, it was just funny because he was one of those people, he'd eat whatever he wanted. He didn't care. But, like you said, people manage. They think that, my brother managed his health by eating only one time a day because
Right.
his stomach would hurt when he would eat.
Right.
So he just eat once a day. And like I said, and people just get in these routines for years
Yeah.
and they don't realize that they don't have to live that way. And you really don't.
I have a family member the same way, only eats dinner.
Yep.
You know, and
It's a coping mechanism. They're coping, and I know because from having the celiac, because for years I refused to, and I can't say anything. I mean, I
yeah,
was celiac, and I was in denial, complete denial. But I love pizza and hamburger, to death. So I didn't give it up.
So before we wrap up, you said you had a long list. Tell me any other symptoms or that went away or improvements that happened that you could think of.
Okay.
Any symptoms that went away or improvements that happened on a low vitamin A diet?
Okay. Well, again, the regular headaches, migraines, joint aches, cold hands and feet, dandruff, the bumps on the back of my arms that I can't remember what they call it, chicken. I don't know, they call it chicken skin or something. Um, Let me see all the different things. Again, the chafing between the legs. I mean, like I said, a lot of men get that, and the heat rashes, um, just lack of energy, inconsistency. Like you said, I could work out for one day be great, and the next day not have anything. Now it's just I'm consistent,
Yeah.
and you really can monitor now. You have a baseline, and you know your body, and you're not you can know when you're overtraining, truly overtraining,
Yeah.
because you're like, okay, I need to cut back here. I'm doing too much. sleep is better. When I go to sleep at night, I mean, I'm out. I mean, I don't wake up till, I wake up. Thankfully my business, I don't have a alarm clock. So I wake up when I wake up. But I'm still consistently around 7 o'clock pretty much every day, like clockwork. Um, Trying to think of all the things. The facial acne, that was the biggest thing, as I had that my whole life. I suffered with this just the bad cystic acne. That went away pretty much. Mouth ulcers. Now, I will say I suffered with mouth ulcers for years, and when that's how I could also tell when I was on the program. A lot of the times when I was having a detox dump, that was one of the symptoms that I would get, a mouth ulcer. So I knew I was having a detox dump,
Wow.
because I would get a mouth ulcer. Um, you know, um, Trying to think of all the things. Like I said, obviously the testosterone and the celiac disease. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the two things you can't,
Yeah.
you supposedly can't fix, yourself, but
Yeah.
you can.
It's just more proof, man. People go to the doctor and they have they get labeled with an autoimmune disease, or labeled with low T, or labeled with celiac, and
Mhm.
that's the headline on their life story of health. But then underneath that headline, there's a list of 12 to 20 other things that are going wrong.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's never just celiac. It's
yeah.
never just low T.
Right, right. Oh, the circles under I used to have real dark blue circles under my eyes.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
crow's feet and things like that were a lot deeper.
Hmm.
My face skin's a lot smoother. Oh, I don't have to wear chapstick anymore. I mean, I was somebody, I had to carry chapstick in my pocket every day.
Yeah.
And again, it was about two. Now it took 2 years. Like I said, this is not something, and it's not so hard to tell people. It's like you're not going to just get on the vitamin A diet and everything heals. I
No.
mean, but 2 years in, I'm in the winter, the dead of winter, and I don't need chapstick.
Huge
I mean,
win. That's another huge win.
it's huge. I've got like 3 or 4 in my nightstand and been in there for years now, and I've not pulled it out. Uh,
You gotta throw those out, man.
I know. It's like I
It's like
bought it
it's it's a reminder to stay on the path.
to stay on the path. I'm trying to think of some other things. Like I said, there's just so many. It's really amazing. It explained everything for me because, like I said, I was such a health nut. I knew all these things. I knew all these studies, and
Yeah.
could just never put it all together. I'm like, why I'm doing everything right?
Right.
Why is my health not great? And but the thing about the matter was I wasn't doing everything. Like you said, the sweet potatoes, because again, you wanted to avoid the nightshade, so I was heavy into the sweet potatoes, and so I wasn't doing myself any favors there either. So now I actually do eat white potatoes every so often,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
French fries and things like that.
Yeah. I'll eat a baked potato once in a while. Say I am traveling and I'm at that steakhouse and my only option is a grilled steak and a baked potato.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but last time I did that, I got somewhat inside the potato, and all of a sudden there was like a weird, nasty eye in there, and it was like a black spot.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, oh man, this is a sign, never again.
No, I love French fries, and I love white potatoes. But I do rice most of the time because I'm conscious of. I know the nightshade issue and joints, and and it's probably just PTSD from the joint pain I used to have.
Yeah,
That you don't want that to come back again. So, like I said, I limit potatoes to once or twice a week.
my man.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else you want to tell the viewers before we say peace out?
The biggest thing is that there's hope. I think a lot of people I talk to, they act like there's just nothing you can do. This is just my life, and there is hope. And the biggest thing is it's not a conspiracy. It's not like it's some, we're going down some cultish path. I mean, the research is there. You just have to open your mind to find it and read it for yourself. And if you're like me, I'm one of those people, they say was high IQ people, they live in a different world. I mean, I wish I could live in the world that other people live in. I wish I could, in some ways it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But if you have the ability and the knowledge to dig deep into this, you'll see if you're still skeptical of it, if you'll dig deep into it, the facts are there. And Dr. Smith, I mean, he is a God sent. I mean, and even he'll say, I don't know why God led me down this path, but he did.
Yeah.
And I totally believe that he is doing good work and but you can heal. I think that's the biggest thing. And like I said, don't let your disease or your issue be your identity.
Well said, brother. Well said. No, for everything that's gotten out of whack, and there's a lot out of balance, and there's a lot of things that went a certain way, there's got to be people and leaders and, guardian angels to come in and balance it, to bring it back towards the middle.
Exactly.
And people have never been more fat, more sick, more depressed, more angry, more traumatic family members, things happening that, this is important work. This is God's work. And there's a reason we're all coming together at the same time, because it's overdue, and enough's enough.
Yeah. Well, it's an awakening. They say all the issues we're having in the world, the internet, yeah, sure, the internet's causing it, but it's kind of like, we're going through, it's almost like birthing pains for a new era. All the old is getting thrown out. The people are now seeing the truth.
Yeah.
Eventually the truth, sure, there's false truths and half truths, and, but I think Elon Musk is big on this. The truth, the real truth will eventually win out.
The truth is like the sun. You can't hide it. It's going to come shine. And those who have their eyes open, they'll see it,
Yep. You're exactly right.
Well said, brother. All right. I'm going to hit the end record, like, comment, subscribe, follow Weldon. I'll put his link down here, but give us a comment for that algorithm warfare. We want to know why we're right, why we're wrong. If you're on a low vitamin A diet, tell us all about your story. And if you want to come on the show and tell us, that would be awesome too, because we're trying to stockpile as many success stories as we can and send them either to the Love Your Liver program or to my community or to both. I'm in both programs. I look at what I'm doing as like, hey, you want to join a club where we're all doing this together and figuring it out together, let's do it. And I mix in a lot of other things with training and athletics and brain training and, other weird things that people might think you're wrong, but you're actually right and they're working. So thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.
All right. Have a good one.